Check out this map of the Arctic from the 16th century. There are 4 major land masses surrounding a polar sea with a massive magnetic rock in its center, called Rupes Nigra, Latin words for black rock. If we do a quick search through raremaps.com's massive inventory for more like it, we find dozens of similar depictions. Here is one by Dutch cartographer Cornelis de Jode in 1593, another from one of the founders of the Dutch East India Company, Petrus Plancius, in 1594, and one last example, Abraham Ortelius's 1570 world map and what is considered the first modern atlas. So where did these depictions originate? Just as Terra Australis in the south, this mysterious land to the north can be traced back to ancient Greek writers. It was called Hyperborea, which loosely translates to beyond the north wind. These ancient writers didn't unanimously agree on everything about Hyperborea, including its location, other than it was to the north. One of the legends was that the sun rose and set just once a year, indicating that it was somewhere within the Arctic Circle. Despite this, it was also said to enjoy a moderate climate. Some of its other characteristics included having strong connections to Apollo, and being home to people as tall as 10 feet, that could live to be 1,000 years old. It was allegedly nearly invaded by an army of 10 million men from a neighboring island, but the army turned back when they realized the Hyperboreans could not be defeated. That's more than 5 times the number of soldiers that landed in Normandy in the first 3 days of the Allied invasion in World War II, which is generally accepted as the largest seaborne invasion in history. 2,000 years later, there were still stories about a mythical land to the north, though some things had changed. Let's go back to that first map shown, which is the most well known. It was created by someone you've probably heard of. Even if you don't recognize the name, you're at least familiar with his work. His name is Gerardus Mercator. He's known for his famous projection created for navigation that makes Greenland look like the size of Africa. It's also commonly used in classrooms and by navigational apps like Google Maps. However, as you can see on his world map, it would have been difficult to use for navigation in the Arctic region, though he did make a more accurately depicted Arctic region as an inset. But trade had been increasing over the 16th century between Europe and the East Indies, and it was a long journey between them. The route at the time was south and around Africa. A northeast passage could reduce shipping times to and from the East Indies from 2 years or more to about 6 months. It would also help avoid many hazards such as run-ins with rival nations, wear and tear on ships, tropical diseases, and the still mysterious disease scurvy. 1 in 5 ships and 1 in 3 employees of the Dutch East India Company never came back from the round Africa route. With the growing interest, Mercator dedicated a map to the Arctic, which was actually published by his son Romuald Mercator in 1595, the year after Gerardus' death. It's also the first standalone map of the Arctic region. Mercator, and probably other cartographers going at least as far back as 1492, got their information from a book titled Itinerarium, which was written by Jacobus Noyen. This book summarized a travelogue titled Inventio Fortunata, meaning fortune discovery. This book was by a 14th century Franciscan friar and mathematician who claimed to have explored the region in 1360 on behalf of Edward III of England. Johannes Rous cited Inventio Fortunata on his 1507 world map. But Jacobus Noyen never actually saw this book. He received this information from a priest who said he had met the author of Inventio Fortunata when the man gave him an astrolabe in exchange for a Bible. Mercator wrote on his world map, "We have taken the Arctic geography from the Itinerarium of Jacobus Noyen of the Hague, who makes some citations from the Gesta of Arthur of Britain. However, the greater and most important part he learned from a certain priest at the court of the King of Norway in 1364. In 1577, Mercator wrote a letter to English astronomer John Dee about the Arctic region and referenced Itinerarium once again. In this letter, he wrote, "In the midst of the 4 countries is a whirlpool, into which there empty these 4 indrawing seas, which divide the north. And the water rushes round and descends into the earth just as if one was pouring it through a filter funnel. It is 4 degrees wide on every side of the pole, that is to say, 8 degrees altogether. except that right under the pole there lies a bare rock in the midst of the sea. Its circumference is almost 33 French miles, and it is all magnetic stone, and is as high as the clouds, so the priest said, who had received the astrolabe from this Minorite in exchange for a testament. And the Minorite himself had heard that one can see all round it from the sea, and that it is black and glistening, and nothing grows thereon, for there is not so much as a handful of soil on it. The friar also claimed to have encountered pygmies. It's unclear if the original book, Inventio, is the source of this concept about the North Pole. A similar story was written by the historian Gerald of Wales in the late 12th or early 13th century. Here is what he had to say. Not far from the isles towards the north there is a monstrous gulf in the sea, towards which all sides the billows of the sea, coming from remote parts, converge and run together as though brought there by a conduit. Pouring into these mysterious abysses of nature, they are as though devoured thereby, and should it happen that a vessel pass there, it is seized and drawn away with such powerful violence of the waves that this hungry force immediately swallows it up, never to appear again. By the 1630s, Mercator's depiction of the region disappeared from maps, due to real discoveries and competing theories about the region. Holes in the story were even appearing to Mercator. While the magnetic rock seemed like a somewhat logical explanation as to why a compass would point north, this wasn't actually where the magnetic North Pole was located. Mercator knew this, and tried to explain away the discrepancy by adding a second rock. But it would still be nearly another 300 years of theories, rumors, and lies about the geography of the Arctic. Before I end this video, thank you to RareMaps.com for sponsoring this video. RareMaps.com is an online antique map shop with over 10,000 maps in their inventory, which includes most of the maps you saw in this video, such as Mercator's Arctic map. Theirs is actually a first edition. Even if you don't plan on purchasing, they're a great resource for learning. I often start my research for my videos with them. Again, that's RareMaps.com. And that's all for this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you all for watching.